All right. My name's Debbie. I'm the job developer here at Valley Center for the Blind. My role is to go out to the community, build connections with employers who want to hire, connect them with people who are blind or have low vision that are looking for employment opportunities. And we also work with business partners who want to support accessibility and inclusion. So at VCB, accessibility is at the heart of everything we do, whether it's helping businesses design more inclusive digital spaces, supporting individuals in the workforce, or ensuring communities can access resources. Our goal is the same, to remove barriers. So that's why today's webinar is very important. We're going to look at 5 practical accessibility essentials that will not only help you meet compliance standards, but also expand your reach, grow your audience, and create a better experience for everyone. So just wanted to thank everyone for, taking the time out of your day just to attend this webinar. It is a very important topic. And I will go ahead and let Bona introduce himself briefly and just share about what he does here at VCB.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bona Sen, and I'm the accessibility specialist here at Valley Center for the Blind. A little bit about me: I was born legally blind, and I am essentially colorblind as well. Um, I am someone who will, you know, audit websites, do document PDF remediation, as well as make documents like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, things of that nature accessible. So, in the realm of accessibility, I make sure that I make everything 508, ADA, and PDF UA compliant.
Awesome. Thank you, Bona. And just wanted to share, we do plan to have a Q&A session at the end of this presentation. So if you do have any questions or anything pops up, feel free to drop it in the chat, but we will go over those items at the end of this just so we can kind of stick with the time frames that we have. But yeah, anything that comes up, like Bona's here to help address those questions, and I'll do my best to support him as well. So we're going to go ahead and dive into this. So a little bit about Valley Center for the Blind. We do serve over 500 people with vision loss per year, and I'm going to start with what we're facing today in the Central Valley. Just wanted to point your attention to 2 statistics. We do serve about 500 people with visual impairments on average each year, but across our service area, which is from Madera to Kern County, there are over 60,000 people with visual impairments. Secondly, in the Central Valley, the unemployment rate for people with visual impairments is over 70%. While we think the actual number that's not reported is a lot higher, but this is why our mission matters. That's why we offer programs like accessibility testing, workforce development, call center operations. We are trying to reduce those gaps. So, what is accessibility testing? Accessibility testing is the process of making sure a website, application, or digital product can be used by everyone. Oh, there's some people coming in. Just for anyone joining us, we are recording this, so I will send this out once the presentation's over. So going back to accessibility testing, it's not just about checking a compliance box, it's also about creating equity and usability so no one is excluded from your digital spaces. When people think of accessibility, they often think about tools for blind users like screen readers, and that's definitely a part of it, but accessibility goes much further. It includes people with vision loss, hearing loss, limited mobility, cognitive differences like dyslexia or ADHD, and even situational challenges, like trying to use your phone in bright sunlight or, using a phone with a broken arm. And also think about this. A person with Parkinson's may struggle with tiny buttons. Someone who is deaf misses key content without captions. And a person with dyslexia may feel overwhelmed by long, dense text. So accessibility helps address all these real-world barriers. It's really more than compliance. It's about building with everyone in mind from the start. So we're going to take a look at why this matters for your audience and for your business. So, accessibility is really about inclusion. It ensures that everyone, regardless of ability, has an equal chance to engage with your website or digital tools. When a website is accessible, it improves the overall customer experience. People can navigate with ease, find what they need, and they're more likely to come back. It also expands your business reach. Did you know that 1 in 4 adults in the US lives with a disability? And globally, that number is over 1 billion people. So accessibility benefits everyone, from a parent trying to use their phone with one hand to someone outdoors in bright sunlight. Beyond usability, accessibility builds trust and strengthens your business reputation. It shows your organization values equity and social responsibility. And yes, while it helps with compliance, like meeting standards like ADA, Section 508, and WCAG, it reduces legal risk while reinforcing your commitment to do the right thing. In short, accessibility is good for people, good for business, good for communities, and it's just the right thing to do. So the first essential for building an accessible website is alternative text for images, also known as alt text. People with visual impairments rely on their screen readers, which describes images using alt text. Creating accessible content includes adding alt text for images, ensuring that descriptions are accurate so visitors can understand the information you're trying to convey. Aim to keep alt text concise for search engine optimization SEO purposes. If possible, please do not display the images of text on your website. Actual text is more flexible than images since it can be read by a screen reader. If you do use an image that includes text that is intended to be read by your website visitors, your alt text must include all the text that appears in that image. So should you add alt text to all images? It really depends on the type of image. If it's an image that's only used for decorative purposes and it doesn't have any really important information, there's no need to add alt text. So a couple key things when writing good alt text, you want to make sure you're being concise. You're accurately focusing on describing the image and avoid stating that it's an image. You don't need to include image of or picture of in these descriptions. The screen readers can work that out on their own. And also want to make sure we're avoiding redundancy. You don't want to repeat information that's already included. So an example would be like if there's a photo of Judge Judy and there's text already next to it that says Judge Judy, there's no need to add this description to the alt tag. And also, a side note, it is very important to remember to add alt text to form buttons. Some screen readers might pass those over and they might not be able to interact with your website, which is really important, like for inquiry forms, complaint forms, or people trying to apply for jobs. If they can't even access your forms, it's kind of excluding some people from the community. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Bona for him to add a little bit more context on alt text.
Yeah. For those who are able to see the slide, it provides some examples for or poor examples for alt text, and it lists image as one example, photo, and then the last one saying IMG underscore 12345 dash KPG. Um, the reason why we don't want to describe something as a photo of or an image of is because alt text that is applied to graphic will always announce as graphic after the alt text. So if you're labeling something as photo, it's going to say photographic, image of something graphic, and so it's redundant. Typically whenever a file name is announced, that's because there actually is no alt text and the screen reader is actually overcompensating. And so it's because it cannot find alt text or any form of useful information to be able to report to the screen reader user who cannot see the image, it'll read the file name or the file location of it. And so you'll get a lot of gibberish. And so if you're hearing a lot of gibberish from a screen reader user, that's because there actually is no alt text.
Thank you so much for providing that context, Bona. Let's move on to the essential item number 2. So we're going to talk about color and contrast. So color and contrast are one of the most common accessibility problems we see in websites, but the good news is they're also one of the easiest to fix. Good contrast makes your text readable, not just for people with low vision or color blindness, but also for anyone using their phone outdoors, on a low quality monitor, or in poor lighting. Accessibility often overlaps with usability. When we improve contrast, everyone benefits. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG, sets specific thresholds. For normal text, the minimum contrast ratio is 4.5 to 1 against its background, and for larger text, it's 3 to 1. This ratio basically measures how different the text color is from the background, and the more difference, the more readable it becomes. It's not just about ratios, though. One of the biggest mistakes designers make is relying on color alone to convey meaning. If you're using red and green to show status, that information is lost to anyone with red-green color blindness, which is one of the most common types. Adding labels, icons, or patterns ensures that the meaning is communicated in multiple ways. And we do have some examples here on this slide about like different vision so that you can see the red, green color blindness, blue, yellow color blindness, and complete color blindness. You can see how, using specific colors for text might not appear to some of those users. There's also some simple free tools that can help. There are contrast checkers like WebAIM. They let you plug in your text and background colors, and you can instantly see if you pass or fail. There's also simulators for Chrome, like No Copy extension, that lets you view your site as if you had low vision or color blindness. And you can even just switch your screen to grayscale, which can quickly reveal if your content still makes sense without color. So finally, one of the most important things your organization can do is to document and standardize accessible color choices. Once you've identified combinations that meet guidelines, build them into your brand style guide or component library. So that way future pages and updates won't accidentally undo your hard work. So in short, there are 4 practical steps here. Check your contrast ratios. Don't rely on color alone. Use tools to test your designs and standardize the accessible colors you want your team to use. And if you take these steps, you can ensure that your website isn't just visually appealing, but it's actually usable for everyone. And I'm going to hand it off to Bona again to see his input on the color and contrast.
Yeah. So first of all, I know Debbie mentioned WCAG, right, or Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. I know that was never discussed, so a brief introduction on that. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, it is a framework, a legal standard that is used for all websites to be considered as accessible. We're currently at 2.2, and the typical standard is AA, so you can go from single A, AA to AAA. AAA is the most stringent, but AA serves the best balance between usability and accessibility. Now, in terms of color contrast, it wasn't really defined as well as what constitutes regular versus large text. So regular text is anything that is lesser than 18-point font, non-bold. If it's bold, then you can have it greater than 14-point font. And that's typically the metric that we use that goes across all websites, all documents to determine whether this is considered large text. And if it's large text, then it needs a less stringent ratio, 3 to 1 or greater. If it is regular text, then it needs 4.5 to 1 or greater. Now you're wondering, what are these numbers, the 3 to 1 or 4.5? If we use the darkest dark, the darkest black and the whitest white on a website or a document in hex code, it's going to be all zeros or all Fs. That's the highest contrast you're going to get from that is 21 to 1. So you can see that it's fairly easy to be able to adjust different contrast ratios and use different color schemes, text and backgrounds to achieve greater than 4.5. Another thing that was talked about, Debbie did mention some plugins, some things that you can use via the website. What I recommend someone do is if they want to get interested, just to be able to test the color contrast of a website or even a document, is using a tool that's called Color Contrast Analyzer. It's a tool that I use personally. It's free to download. Color Contrast Analyzer. The word color is actually spelled like the European way, so COLOUR. But if you look at that, basically it is a tool where if you have enough visible site, you can select and basically, select the text color you want against the background, and it'll report exactly what the color contrast is. If you're on a website and you're a little more technical, you can do the inspect tool or the developer mode tool and be able to look at the color contrast or the hex code and use that as well. So there's very different options. And I think that based on what you said, I think that's all in terms of color contrast that I want to discuss. Obviously, if you guys have more questions, you can save that to the end and we can go into further details.
Awesome. Thanks, Bona. That's why he's our subject matter expert, because he can explain it way more in depth than I. But yes, thank you so much, Bona. I'm going to move on to the third essential item for website accessibility, which is keyboard navigation. One of the most important principles of accessibility is making sure your website can be used with the keyboard alone. So for many people who are blind or have low vision, the keyboard, not a mouse, is their primary way of navigating. Screen readers users rely on the tab, arrow keys, and shortcuts to move through content. But it's not just blind users. People with motor impairments, tremors, or conditions like carpal tunnel may not be able to use a mouse reliably. Even Even situationally, think about someone with a broken arm or someone using a laptop on a bumpy bus ride. If the site can't be used with just a keyboard, it's shutting the door on all these people. The good news is keyboard accessibility is straightforward to test. You could try it yourself now or a little bit later. Basically, you'd open up a website, put your mouse aside, and press the tab key. Can you see where the focus is on the screen? Can you move through menus, links, form fields in a logical order? Can you submit a form by hitting the enter key? If the answer is no, that website is not accessible. One of the biggest issues we see is what's called a keyboard trap, when a user tabs into a field or element and can't get back out. For someone relying solely on the keyboard, this is like falling into a hole with no exit. This fix often comes down to using proper HTML and ARIA markup. So, for example, making sure all the buttons are actually button elements, not just clickable text style to look like one, or making sure modals and pop-ups can be closed with the keyboard. These might seem like very minor details, but they make the difference between a site that's usable and one that isn't. So the takeaways here are just pretty simple. Always test your site with a keyboard. Make sure the focus order is logical and visible. Avoid traps that strand the user and use semantic HTML whenever possible because it's designed to be keyboard friendly by default. And keyboard accessibility isn't just for compliance, it's fundamental usability. If a person can't navigate your website without a mouse, then your website is excluding them. And I will hand this back to Bona to see what his input is on keyboard navigation.
Yeah, so the reason why Debbie really emphasized keyboard navigation and keyboard accessibility is, and she gave great examples on using the tab. Um, there's another reason why tabbing is really important, not just for keyboard users, but Debbie mentioned other form of disabilities, whether you have the use of your arms or not, whether you're paraplegic, whether you have cognitive disabilities, whatever the situation is, a lot of disabled devices, someone who has no use of their arms might use something called a sip and puff device where, they're going to activate it with their mouth and be able to breathe in, breathe out to be able to simulate the tabbing. So a lot of disabled products simulate tabbing. It might not always be a physical keyboard where someone can even hit the tab key, but a lot of functionality involves tabbing. And so you're also asking yourself, well, why is tabbing important? Anything that you can interact with on a website, including links, menu items, buttons, form fields, combo boxes, drop downs, accordions. Basically, if you're asking yourself if I have to press enter or I have to press spacebar or I have to type something in, that is something that I can interact with. And if I can interact with, I need to be able to tap to it because if I cannot tap to it, then everyone with a disability that needs a device to simulate tabbing cannot access that. And if that means that a button to add a product or service on a website can't be accessed, imagine how many people you're losing money and things to because they can also not access those. I've contacted and I've done audits for a lot of websites, and sometimes developers will come to me and say, "Well, our website is accessible because we haven't gotten any complaints." And when I test the website, guess what? The feedback function to provide input is not accessible. So if it's not accessible, how do you get complaints from people who have disabilities who can't access in the first place? So it's an ironic circle. You want to have things that are accessible so people can provide input, people can purchase your products, people can access the menus. Without that accessibility, without that keyboard navigation, you're limiting a lot of access. I'm trying to think of what else you talked about keyboard traps. That's another important thing. So if you want to explore a website just simply by tabbing through the website from the top to the bottom, if you ever get stuck at any point and you're not able to tab all the way to the bottom, or in this case, if you want to reverse it, use a shift with the tab key and it'll reverse the traction. So you should always be able to tab from the top to the bottom and shift tab from the bottom to the top. If at any point you're stuck, that's a keyboard trap. And that's really important because if you can't get beyond a point, that's another form of keyboard inaccessibility as well. Last thing, I think Debbie talked about ARIA. Most people understand what HTML is. ARIA is what I consider a translator for screen reader users. Obviously, there are a lot of HTML semantics or HTML code that work really well for screen readers to interpret, but that's not always the case. There's some type of elements on a page that regardless of how well you code the HTML, the screen reader is not going to be able to pick it up. So think of it as a translator for the screen reader. You use ARIA to be able to fill in those missing pieces where the screen reader is not able to understand the HTML code and get proper context. So it's a lot easier to understand with the screen reader. I think that's it that you talked about. So same thing. If you have any questions about what I talked about, we can always address it during the end.
Awesome. Yeah, great points, Bona. Thank you so much for that. I'm gonna head over. I switched over to my headset, so I had a cat in the background
Oh,
crying. So if the
okay.
volume's different, I do apologize. So I will go ahead and switch over to central item number 4 for website accessibility. So one of the easiest ways to improve accessibility is by giving your website a clear and logical structure. For most of us, a page looks organized because of how it's styled visually, big, bold titles, smaller subtitles, body text. But screen readers don't see formatting. They rely on headings and labels coded properly in the HTML. If your site has multiple headings, they should follow logical order. An H1 for the main title, H2 for major sections, and H3s for subsections, and so on. When headings are skipped or used just for visual size, the page stops making sense for someone navigating with assistive technology. Structure also matters in forms. If a form field says name visually but doesn't have a programmatic label, a screen reader may just announce edit box. So that'll leave your user guessing what to type. So clear coded labels eliminate that confusion. And this just doesn't just help people who are blind or low vision. Someone with ADHD or memory challenges benefits when content is chunked into logical sections. Someone skimming a page for information can quickly jump to the part they need. And honestly, I'm very guilty of that. Sometimes I'm like looking for a specific topic and I'm just like, I don't need to read this whole intro thing because, articles and blogs, they kind of beef things up for like SEO purposes. They have to have a certain limit count. So sometimes you're just like, hey, I'm just looking for this one section. Let me just navigate through there. So headings are very helpful in that aspect too. The simplest way to test your structure is to use your keyboard or screen reader's heading navigation. If you can move through the page in a way that feels orderly and predictable, you're on the right track. If not, it may mean headings need to be reordered or labels need to be added. The big points out here is just to use proper heading levels, not just bold or larger fonts. Give every form field a clear label and keep your content organized into logical sections. A well-structured page helps screen readers and helps users with cognitive challenges, and really it helps everyone find the information they need faster. So I did want to play this video. It does provide an example of a screen reader using the heading structure to navigate a page. But I have my headset on, so I'm not too sure how. Let me see. Should I just try it, Bona?
Yeah.
Okay. And just let me know. I'm hitting play if you guys don't hear the audio. Can you guys hear the audio?
No.
No. You
No.
might have to stop sharing, Debbie, and share, but the option share audio needs to be
Oh,
checked.
okay. I think it'll be okay. We can skip over this video because I know Bona's going to do a demonstration at the end too. So he can kind of demonstrate like with the heading level. So I'll go ahead. I'll make sure to email this video and email the slides to everyone in the attending this. So do apologize for that one technical issue. But basically it kind of goes over like what someone with a screen reader, how they would navigate through that. But yeah, like I said, Bona can demo that also at the end of this presentation. And Bona, did you have anything you wanted to add about the clear heading structures?
Yes, definitely. Um, so the reason why, sorry about that, my throat's a little dry, but the reason why heading structures and screen readers are really important is because visually, when you encounter heading levels, whether it's in a document, whether it's on a website, a lot of times people will style something in a certain way. They'll use bigger fonts to signify that's a heading level. And for people who are sighted, when you're going through a website, yes, that's great. You can see based on the size of a font that you're making this a larger heading level. But not everyone understands heading level 1 through 6, or even developers, for the longest time, and even to this day, I still see that as a very common issue where developers, rather than marking up in HTML on a website that something is a heading level, they'll use bigger font sizes to signify that it's a heading level, or various heading levels, typically having the largest font size on the top of the page to signify it's the main heading level on the page, and reducing the size as they do that. The issue with that is a screen reader user who has absolutely no sight, who's using the H key to try to locate these heading levels, the page is going to come back and say there are no heading levels on the page. And without the heading levels, you can't, when you have no sight, you can't visually imagine the structure of a page, and the heading level page is almost like the table of contents. If you're able to read the heading levels, you get an idea of what the chapters are. You can get a preview of the basic makeup of the page, the basic logical structure, what you're getting from the page. Just like Debbie mentioned, she with vision, she can go ahead and look at the larger fonts and see and bypass the paragraphs of information, but a screen reader user can't just do that. They don't know where to go. And so without heading levels, they have to read the entire website from top to bottom. So it's very important to have that proper markup, and I will demonstrate that later on. Something else that Debbie mentioned was that not having logical structures and having um, text that's too clumped up together can also cause issues with people with ADHD and also cognitive disabilities. So what that means is in testing, we do something called text spacing. We want to make sure that a website gives us the ability to be able to space and change this, the text spacing of characters. So that way, someone who sees text as too close, too densely, close together, they can always modify the distance, and that way it's a lot easier to read for them. So, think about it as something either too close or too far. At the end of the day, you're allowing a website to be flexible, to be able to enlarge the font to something that you're able to read, to be able to space the font to what you're able to read, to have proper heading levels so it's easier for everyone to use, not just screen readers. And I think that's all I wanted to talk about in that regard because things will be demonstrated. So you can continue.
Awesome. Well said. Thank you, Bona. All right, moving on to essential item number 5. Accessible documents in PDF. So finally, we're going to talk about this item because it's one of the most common gaps in accessibility. You might have a beautifully accessible website, but if the documents you link to aren't accessible, you're still putting up barriers. Many organizations upload PDFs that are essentially just scanned images, and a screen reader can't interpret that. It just sees a picture. That means the content is not visible to someone who is blind or low vision. And an accessible PDF is one that's properly tagged. So tags define the reading order, the headings, the paragraphs, and alt text for any images. Without those tags, the file is unreadable by assistive technology. Forms are another big issue. If a PDF form isn't coded to be fillable, someone using a screen reader can't enter their information. That's not just frustrating, it just means someone's excluded from applying for services or benefits or even like applying for a job. That's a big deal. Best practice is to provide alternative formats whenever possible. If you're posting a PDF, maybe offer an HTML version or make sure that the PDF is tagged. Large print or text-only versions are also helpful for some users. To check your PDFs, there are accessibility checkers built into Adobe Acrobat, or you can run them through tools like Hack, PDF Accessibility Checker. Even better, build accessibility into the creation process. So if you're exporting from Word or InDesign, you want to make sure the documents are structured and labeled before you save them as a PDF. So takeaways for having accessible documents in PDFs. We want to avoid image-only PDFs. We want to make sure we're tagging our documents so they're readable with assistive technology. Make sure the forms are fillable, and whenever possible, provide alternate formats. Accessible documents ensure that this important information, whether it's a handbook, policy, or form, is usable by everyone who needs it. And I will go ahead and have Bona share his thoughts on accessible PDFs. I feel like he's going to have a lot of thoughts on this one. I'll pass it to you, Bona.
Yeah. Obviously, there are always a lot of issues with accessible websites or inaccessible websites, but I see the most issues with inaccessible PDFs. Um, I don't know if this was discussed, but a lot of times PDFs are scanned images. Someone perhaps used a scanner and scanned in a form field, and now it's a document. Yes, it looks visually, it might look visually pleasing, or someone did it to make it look fancy, but at the end of the day, when a screen reader user loads up that PDF that is a scanned image, all they're going to hear is graphic or whatever the name of that graphic is. So if someone did not name that scanned image and it's a series of numbers, for example, you might hear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 graphic. All the information, all the content, all those fillable forms that looks visually pleasing is not accessible. You're not able to fill out anything, and therefore it has to be printed out. And at the end of the day, you have to help someone with the screen reader to do it. So um, it needs proper tagging. That's another form of art where, we're not going to get too much into it. But the basic structure of PDF is all about tagging. If there's no tags, it's not accessible and it's not going to be readable by a screen reader. Um, I'm thinking what else? There's so many to PDFs that I don't want to spend all day talking about it, but mainly, the basics are similar to websites. If there are images, if it's a decorative image, then it doesn't need to be announced. If it is an image that has information that conveys additional context that's necessary to be heard, then it needs proper alt text. The rules of color contrast, regular text, large text, all those things still apply. Fillable forms. I think Debbie briefly talked about it in saying that a form that does not have a proper label will read edit. And so screen reader users, if we tab into a form field and all we hear is edit, we have no clue what we're putting in. It's reading edit because that's the role that's being announced. We want to hear first name edit or last name edit. Hearing that accessible or programmatic name gives us context to know exactly what we're filling out. If we have 10 fields and they're all saying edit, 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 you have no idea what you're doing. So tagging PDFs, making sure they're accessible is a very common issue that I see. Most PDFs that I see, I think I haven't met a single PDF that I've had to fix that was not inaccessible in some way. So it's alarming how many PDFs out there are just inaccessible to screen reader users and possibly other disabilities as well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Bona. Yeah, because I know like being here at BCB, I have learned a lot like shadowing Bona and like even seeing like how he remediates documents, and it's just wild to me because I know for like our designers, like we have upcoming events, we like to use Canva a lot, like, oh, here's this event, but sometimes even using those platforms, like those documents are pretty inaccessible. I wish we had like all the time in the world today because I this is an exciting topic for us to share. But yeah, it's just things to be mindful of, and just once again, it's really important that you guys are here learning about it. So as you go back to your team, you share some of this information, and just when you're creating PDFs or documents or event flyers, just kind of being mindful of who can access your content. So just great conversation. Thank you so much, Bona. So let's move on to the next slide. So we're talking about manual and automated testing. So accessibility testing isn't just one thing, it's a combination of automated tools and human review. That's the manual testing. Automated testing is great for catching certain errors quickly. So there are tools like Wave or Axe Auditor that can scan a page and point out the missing alt text, poor color contrast, or incorrect heading structures. These are quick, consistent, and helpful, but automation and these tools have limits. An automated tool can tell you an image is missing alt text, but it can't tell you if the alt text you wrote is meaningful. It can't judge whether a video transcript captures tone and nuance, or if your navigation actually makes sense. So that's where the manual testing comes in. That's where Bona comes in. Manual testing can simply mean using a keyboard to navigate your site, running it with a screen reader like NVDA or VoiceOver, or asking someone with lived experience to try it out. So real user feedback is something automation will never replicate. The most effective approach is combining both. Use automation to sweep for technical issues, then the manual methods to confirm usability and quality. Don't wait until the end. We want to make sure we're testing early, test often, and fix issues before they compound. So my key point I'm trying to make here is that while automation is useful, accessibility is about people. So you need both the tools and the human perspective to get it right. Bona, did you want to add anything to this one?
Yes. So I know it was generally stated, but accessibility or automated tools, sometimes on a website, it might only uncover 10 to 30% of the issues. Rarely is it gonna, I know she mentioned that automated tools will uncover the technical aspects of it, but it's only going to uncover or find issues that are in HTML code. And so it's really limited in what it can find. If it obviously if it is looking at the HTML code and it's looking at an image tag and the image doesn't have alt text, then of course it can spot it. But can it spot whether the alt text, for example, has appropriate alt text? Can it determine whether something is decorative or informative? No. Can it determine whether links or buttons have appropriate labels? Can it determine whether form fields have programmatic, labels for screen readers? No. So there's a lot of things that it cannot do. It's really limited. And, I say if you want to get a general idea of some of the HTML issues on a page, you can do an automated test and then follow it up by manual testing. But what I will say is automated testing is not necessarily required for web content accessibility guideline and audits, but manual testing is definitely required. So if I had to pick between automated and manual testing, I would choose manual testing if I had to exclusively pick one because automated testing is not going to find much. There's definitely tools, and that's the issue with it is a lot of people will go to website saying, well, this website is going to use automated tools to test the accessibility of your website. And people will run those tools on their website and say, oh, well, all I'm seeing is this many issues. They'll fix those issues thinking their website is up to accessibility standards, when in fact, it's nowhere near. So use that as a basic guideline to get an idea of what issues are, but follow it up with manual testing because it's going to typically uncover 60 to 90% of the issues that are not uncovered with automated tests.
Thank you so much, Bona. Yeah, those are great points. I'm going to go ahead and move on to our next slide. So one of the biggest misconceptions is that accessibility is separate from good design, or worse, that it limits creativity. In reality, accessibility is just good design. So think about it. Captions help people who are deaf, but they also help someone watching a video in a noisy cafe. Clear navigation helps the blind screen reader user, but it also helps a rush customer find what they need faster. Color contrast helps people with low vision, but it also improves readability on a mobile phone outdoors. When we build for accessibility, we're not designing for a small group. We're improving the experience for everyone. Accessibility overlaps with universal design principles. Something is easy to see, easy to hear, easy to navigate, easy to understand. It's just plain better. From a business perspective, accessible design improves SEO, increases customer loyalty, and reduces legal risk. From a community perspective, it's inclusive and equitable. So instead of thinking of accessibility as an add-on or a checklist, think of it as a foundation of good design. Accessible design is usable design, and usable design is successful design. I'm briefly going to go into some of our services. So here at Valley Center for the Blind, accessibility is not just something we talk about, it's something we do and live by every day. Our services are designed to help organizations like yours build more inclusive spaces and stay compliant with regulations. So we do provide website and application accessibility audits. We do a combination of automated scans with manual reviews by Bona. As we mentioned, he is blind himself. We offer Section 508 and WCAG compliance support, helping you meet federal standards and industry best practices. We also handle document remediation, so making sure your PDFs, forms, other resources are tagged, structured, and fillable. And for organizations who want to build internal capacity, we do provide training sessions so your teams can learn how to design and maintain accessibility long-term. So it would be a similar format, but way more in-depth than this 1-hour presentation. One thing that makes Valley Center for the Blind unique is that our work isn't theoretical. Our team brings lived experience in the process. That means we not only test with tools, but also with actual people those tools are meant to serve. So in short, VCB can be your partner in making accessibility real, actionable, and sustainable. And finally, a call to action. Just before we wrap up, I want to leave you with just like the simple call to action. Accessibility does not have to be overwhelming. There's small steps you can take to make a difference. Like we mentioned on the flyer, the first 5 businesses who registered will receive a free preliminary check from our tester. If you're one of them, we'll make sure to reach out via email soon with details. And for anyone else on this call, I do encourage you to take an action this week, whether it's running a contrast check, add captions to a video, or try navigating your current business site with only a keyboard. You might be surprised at what you discover. And if you want support, Valley Center for the Blind is here to help. Feel free to reach out to us, whether it's for an audit, training, or just to start a conversation. Like we're happy to schedule like a discovery call to see what your agency needs. And pretty much together, we're trying to make the web more inclusive for everyone. And that's, pretty good mission to have. So now I'm going to have Bona do a live demonstration of a website accessibility audit. And then afterwards, if anyone has any questions, we'll have that discussion. So I'm handing it off to you now, Bona.
Okay. It was really hard to find, there's so many websites that have a lot of bad examples, and I didn't want to choose a website that was so bad that you guys will have to hear the screen reader ramble on, because that is a really bad website. So I started with something that I typically give my students earlier on when I'm teaching accessibility. So let's go ahead and share my screen.
Sharing meeting controls. Screen sharing meeting controls.
And let me know if you guys can.
CDS money market and savings accounts vertical bar view and acquisition.
Yeah, we can see
okay.
it. Thanks.
I will.
Slower.
Yeah, let's see.
CDS money market and faster.
Yeah.
CDS money market and savings accounts vertical bar.
Okay. So this is the website that I give to earlier students who are learning accessibility. So I thought, it has some good things, it has some bad things. We're going to quickly go over some of those things without doing a full audit, because that's going to take some time. But earlier today, we talked about heading levels and how it is really important with screen reader users when you don't have proper heading levels and when you do. And obviously there was supposed to be a video that demonstrated that. So that's going to be the first thing that I'm going to do. What I did at the very beginning when I started my screen share was I did Control Home. And Control Home, if you do it on a website or you do it in a document, it's going to take you to the very top of the page.
CDS money market and savings accounts vertical bar VO bank.
So the first thing it did is it's reading the title of this web page, so I know exactly where I'm at. Obviously, if the title of the web page was blank page, it's going to read blank page. Now, in order for me to navigate heading levels, I'm going to press H. H is the default way to navigate by heading levels. If I know the structure of a heading level and I want to navigate by a specific heading level, I can use that number. So I can press either the number 1 if I want to navigate by the heading level 1s on the page, 2, 3, 4, 5, and up to 6. That's the maximum that you can use in HTML 1 through 6. So let's go ahead and start with that right now, and let's see what we get from the top of the page.
Online savings heading level 2.
Online savings heading level 2. Now, we always want to start with the heading level 1, because if you start a book, you don't want to start it as chapter 2. I'm going to think, what's going on? I'm missing information. What is the topic of this page that I want to do? Right now, all I'm hearing is online savings heading level 2. So visually, you can verify that this is not anywhere near the top of the page. Perhaps because this is a VioBank website, I would have probably wanted to hear the word VioBank or something along those lines to talk about VioBank. Online savings would be a subheading. So although it is true that it's heading level 2, I would have wanted a heading level 1. I'm going to press H again.
Featured CD rates heading level 2.
Okay, featured CD rates heading level 2. At least it's on the same tier, so that's perfectly fine.
Great rates, easy, secure heading level 2.
Now, great rates, easy, secure. I can argue that this is the same tier of heading level. And if it's the same tier, I want to keep it as a heading level 2.
Do more with your money heading level 3.
Now, do more with your money. Visually, I think they're using a larger font, so a larger font should be a lower heading level. So right off the bat, this is not making sense, and the structure of it is going to confuse someone if they're trying to understand the hierarchical structure of it.
Safe investments for retirees heading level 2.
This is a heading level 2 underneath the heading level 3. If it's underneath, you want to be a heading level 4. So right off the bat, when we're navigating, we can see
CDSVS liquid savings accounts heading level 2.
the structure of the website is not done really well. So let's go back to the top of the page. This was just to get an idea. Oftentimes, ScreenReader users who have no concept or no structure of a new page, that's how they're going to navigate, because you can't just scroll the page and look for the larger fonts and look for specific headings. If you're on a website that has certain products and services, you want to look for those heading levels that say, in bold, services or products, and you can see the services underneath the services heading level. You can see the products underneath the products heading level. You get the idea. You want to structure your page according to the heading levels, and so heading levels are really important. Without that markup, you're not going to, me and other ScreenReader users are not going to be able to navigate this at all and get any idea. So let's go back to the top of the page.
CDS money market and savings accounts vertical.
Okay, and I silence the ScreenReader anytime when it gets a little too verbose. I do that by pressing the Control key. But now I'm going to tab through the page, because remember, keyboard navigation, keyboard accessibility is all tied to being able to tab. Not everyone can use a mouse. Not everyone can use, other forms of devices due to different varying disabilities. We want to simulate the ability to tab, because if we can simulate the ability to tab, we can ensure that everyone who has other disabled disabilities can navigate this website. So let's go ahead and tab and let's see what we get.
Skip to main content, same page link.
Skip to main content. Now, this is something that is required of all websites, because if I'm a keyboard user and I need a tab and we have a heading structure that has a navigation menu, I would have to tab through every single thing. And if you have a large structure, you don't want to press or be hitting the tab key or even simulating the tab key 40, 50 times in order to get to the important part of the page. That's equivalent to a book, and you're having difficulty, or maybe you're scrolling through pages and every page is a table of contents. I want to just get to the start of, I want to get to chapter 1, so make it easy to be able to skip to the main content of the page. Now, obviously, for sake of time, I'm not going to test this. Usually I would press enter and see if this actually takes me to the main region of the page, bypassing the navigation menu. For the sake of this example, I'm going to continue to tab.
Skip to login selection, same page link.
Okay, skip to login selection. So visually at the top of the page, there's a login selection. If someone wants to be able to log in right away, at least this is giving the opportunity to do so.
Learn about the stability of VeoBank link. Learn more about the strength and stability of VeoBank.
Okay, so here I'm listening. It gave me the name and it told me the link. That's appropriate. If it just reads link, or it just says learn more link, then I have no idea what I'm learning more about, and that's a link purpose. That means the link has to be more descriptive.
California-privacy-policy link.
California-policy-privacy link. Whenever you hear a lot of dashes in between things, that means there's actually no label on this thingy, and the screen reader is actually reading the destination of the link. So this is actually an issue that I would log, because someone forgot to label this. So it's, a screen reader is not going to be able to get this. This is fortunate that there's actually some words in it, but sometimes if you get things that are not labeled, you're going to get a series of A71/_B265, et cetera, and it can go on very long. And so it's essentially another language that you're not going to understand.
Banner region, navigation region, VeoBank link graphic.
VeoBank link graphic. We always want to hear the logo of the website. So this is actually announced correctly. Sometimes we get things like gibberish, or we just get something like home link, or even just link. So that's fine.
Navigation menu, navigation region, list with 5 items, CDS link.
CDS link. We were told that we were in the navigation region. We have a navigation menu, so that's all appropriate. Let's go ahead and go through this. It said it was a list of 5 items, starting with CDs.
Savings link.
Savings.
Money market savings link.
Money market savings.
VeoBank link. Learn link.
Learn link. Now, typically, this learn link, if it's in a website, it doesn't have much information at all, and we want to clarify what we're learning more about. But because this is in the navigation region, we're allowed to be a little vague in that regard.
Enter user ID edit. Required invalid entry. Blank.
Okay, so that gave me a proper programmatic label. If it just said edit, I would have no clue what I need to type in, but it told me the information that's requesting, and so that's fine.
Sign in button.
Sign in button. Okay. Now,
Lauren Flores has left the.
okay. So sign in button means that you want something to be a button if it's performing an action on the website. If this is going to take me somewhere, I want this to be a link. So it's really subtle, and I don't get into the more complex issues, but that's something I would log as well.
Remember user ID checkbox not checked.
Okay. So it's reading it, and it told me the checkbox is not checked. If I press spacebar,
Space checked.
okay,
Space not checked.
you can see that it's properly conveying that it's checked or unchecked. A lot of times when this is an accessible issue, you're not going to hear anything. So I would press a spacebar, and I would get no form of announcement from the screen reader, and I would have no clue whether I actually checked something or not. So this is actually good.
List with 3 items. Forgot account ID button. Verify test transactions button. Enroll in online banking button. Complementary region. Open an account link.
Open account link. You'll see, I think in 2 more tabs, open account is very vague.
Learn more link.
Learn more link, that's also very vague. I don't know what I'm learning more about.
Open an account link.
That sounds really familiar. Open account link. So clearly we have 2 different links that have the exact same name. And someone who has enough vision can see that they're opening account for the feature CD rates or for the online saving. But a screen reader user, if you have several of these that are labeled exactly the same, how do I know which one I'm going to? That's equivalent to add product to cart, add product to cart, add product to cart. Tell me exactly what I'm adding, because screen reader users will do something called a links list as well, where I'm going to pull up a link.
JAWS Home Manual. Links list dialog. Links list view. Open an.
And this will pull up every single link on the website. So if I press O,
Open an account. 11 of 37.
you open an account.
Open an account. 13 of 37.
So I know that there's 2 vague things, and so I have no context whatsoever of what I'm opening account for. Is this for a personal account? Is this for a savings account? Is this for a checking account? You have no clue, and for that reason, that's going to make it really challenging for screen reader users or even people in general to be able to use. So
Escape.
let's go ahead and continue.
See all CDS link.
Now you'll notice that if I hover my mouse, and let's see, I'm going to have to locate my mouse. I think I found it. So it says 4mo, 6mo, and I think it's supposed to be 4 months, 6 months, 9 months. Clearly, I can hover with the mouse on these things, but
Main region.
it skipped that entirely. So if I wanted to know the annual percentage rate for different months, I'm not able to access it in any way. So that's a function where they put on there to make it easier to do calculations, but it's not accessible. And it's not, and someone, for example, who has no, who can't use their hands, who's using a sip and puff device, for example, they can't read that either. So it's just anyone who cannot simulate tabbing, which is going to be a good amount of the population. Let me go ahead and go back, because I think we landed on a graphic.
Complementary main region. Banking / best - money - market - accounts link.
You can hear how that read really weird with all these different dashes. That's because there's no label for this graphic, and so that's missing a label. Sometimes it's going to be a little more obvious, and it'll say graphic, or it'll just say a bunch of gibberish. But let's go ahead and continue. We're almost done. This is a really short page.
Best - money - market - accounts link.
See how these things have the website that link to these particular graphic images. They have a little bit of a name, but these are all website links.
Best - money - market - accounts link. Best - banks link.
These are all inaccessible because they don't have proper labels to them.
Stick.gov / bank find link.
Now, if I was listening to that with the screen reader,
Best - stick.gov / bank find link.
I have no idea what the stick.gov / bank find link means. So in cases like this, when you do have a URL, you can do a couple things. You can either, rather than putting the entire site name, you can tell us exactly where this is taking us to, Bank Finder link, for example, or even changing the capitalization on something. So I'll pull up Notepad
Search box.
just for a quick example.
Notepad. Enter. Notepad app. Press right to view.
If I put in lowercase FDIC and I'm going to read it,
Stick.
see how that doesn't make any sense? But if I wanted to read,
Enter.
oops,
Misspelled. Stick. FDIC.
you can see the difference. So even though a lot of links and websites are not case sensitive, putting things like that are really important. I'll use another example. Our website, myvcb.gov, in a lot of listings, we have it in lowercase. So
Enter. Caps
if I'm
lock off. Caps.
myvcb, and if I
Home.
actually,
MIV.
it pronounces MIV. So someone who's listening to MIV or MIV.org, let me go
Period.
ahead and
Home. Misspelled. MIV.org.
MIV.org. We really have no clue what that is unless we literally have to go through every single letter
and
to be able to get what that is. Now, if I changed it
Enter.
to capital M, lowercase y,
My
capital VCB,
home misspelled,
and now I read it,
myvcb.org.
see how I can hear myvcb.org instead of miv.org and try to guess what it is. So those are common examples of having capitalizations for links make a huge difference on what is being announced and what isn't. Because a lot of websites, guess what? myfavoritetoy.gov. I'm just making up an example, but if it's all lowercase, the screen reader is going to try to read it in a really weird way. I haven't tried it, so favorite toy. So let's just see what it reads. Are you able to understand that was my favorite toy?
Yeah.
No. So that's just an example. Let's go ahead and go quickly back to the
Money
website.
market and saving.
Bona,
Yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just want to be mindful because we're at the
Okay.
2 p.m. mark. No, but
Actually,
this was a great demonstration.
Yeah. Any
I just
questions,
don't-
I guess? Yeah. No,
yeah,
that's fine.
no worries. Yeah. I think
Screen share.
we're very passionate about this topic and we're wanting to share as much knowledge as we can in the 1 hour. So let me just pull this up really quick. So right now we're going to open up if anyone has any questions, or if you want to maybe have like a separate discovery call with us, you can always email us at accessibility@myvcb.org if you feel like, this might be kind of a big undertaking for your team and you want us to be your specialist. We're happy to do so. But yeah, I just wanted to open up the floor and just see if anyone had any questions or comments on anything you've learned today. This is the time for Q&As. And if you have to hop off too, feel free to. But yeah, any questions from today's presentation? No? Okay, but if anything does come up, like if you share some of this information with your team, feel free to give us an email. Like I said, the email address is up there, it's accessibility@myvcb.org. And if you're looking for other ways to support our agency, we do have our annual White Cane Day coming up. It's an awareness event here in Fresno at Inspiration Park on October 18th. We're looking for table sponsors, so if you'd want to learn more about that, feel free to reach out. Other than that, though, just thank you everyone for your time and just hope you got some good information to take back to your team. And if you want to have a further discussion on accessibility, we're here for you. And thank you so much for joining us today, everyone. Have a good one. Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.